Hey there, podcast listeners. Exciting news. My new audiobook, The Short Book Formula, a financial professional's guide to writing a book in 6 weeks to attract ideal clients, is out now. And the best part, for a limited time, we're offering this audiobook to you for free. Hurry over to www.theshortbookformula.com and claim your copy now. And now, on to our show.
Hey everyone, this is Paul McManus, the CEO of More Clients, More Fun, and the host of the $1 Million Producer Show. And I am honored today to have my guest, Mike Bell. Mike Bell is the Executive Vice President of First Financial Resources and has been in the life insurance industry for a few decades now. I think
a long time, 40 years.
I think most prominently, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were the Executive Vice President of Pacific Life for over 30 years.
Well, I was with Pacific Life for 35 years. I had a lot of different jobs.
So if we can, I'd like to go back to the beginning because you have a very long, distinguished career in this industry. And, 35 years ago or whenever it was, what brought you into this business? What got you into Pacific Life or just the life insurance industry in general?
It's kind of a funny story. So I was just turned 21. And so, not a lot going for me, just out of school working. And to be honest with you, the way I got into the insurance business is I sold carpet to a sales manager at Pacific Life who recruited me into them for sales as a career agent.
Oh, wow.
I joined Pacific Life at 21 as a career agent.
Wow. That is very interesting.
That would have been 1979.
Very cool. Now that prompts the question for me is how do you go from selling carpet, I believe you said, to running as the Executive Vice President of Pacific Life? How do you start there and end up where you ended up?
Well, you start there, but then you realize you're not a very good prospector.
Ooh.
Which is a bad thing if you're on the sales side of it.
Yeah.
But I was in sales for about 9 years for Pacific Life. And then I was offered the opportunity to take over their San Francisco branch office.
Okay.
At the time and run that, which I did in San Francisco for about 9 years. And then after that, they asked me to come into the home office and run distribution.
Okay.
And so I went into the home office, ran distribution and marketing for about 7-8 years, and then took over the life operation and ran the life division my last 8 years there. So one company, but a lot of different jobs in a lot of different places.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
As I think marketing is near and dear to my heart. So I'm curious to ask, while you were in the marketing department at Pacific Life, what were some of the things that you were doing to grow revenue?
Our whole focus at that time was just delivering value to the producers and to the advisors at the time. So the important thing, not a lot of great ideas will come out of a home office, but they can jazz up some ideas that the field starts with, make sure they're compliant, and put them into presentable presentations for the producers. And at that time, in the early years of that marketing, producers were looking for that.
Sure.
There was an evolution in the industry where producers were leaving the career business and going out on their own.
Right.
And that was in the late 80s, mid to late 80s. That's when producer groups started. Because producers had gone out on their own and then decided, it's pretty lonely out there.
Right.
When you're out there by yourself. So then they started to come together in producer groups. But then when they really started looking for marketing materials and help from the carriers, and Pacific Life kind of led that way in that brokerage community.
Wow, that's very cool. I think you bring up an interesting point about entrepreneurs and independent producers is that, I think a lot of us enjoy being independent and being our own boss. And, part of that is that it can be lonely out there. And so
it can be lonely out there, especially if you started as a career agent. And that's usually the process. You start that way, and then you start seeing that there's other companies and other opportunities out there. But then when you go out there, it's a complete shock on everything that you have to do on your own.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that it was during the 80s that producer groups started forming, and you in Pacific Life took the lead there. And I know now you're part of a producer group, First
Yes.
Financial Resources. Before we go specifically into First Financial Resources, I'd love to get maybe some of your insight from the Pacific Life perspective, or just your role then, about the value that you saw producer groups have and offer producers.
Well, we were at Pacific Life, we were one of the first carriers in M Financial. And M was really the first big producer group. FFR followed, and NFP followed after that, and some of the more recent ones. But we found it as a way, as the carriers, we wanted to get out of the career business, and we wanted to get into the brokerage business without becoming a BGA company per se.
Okay.
We started doing direct contracts with the producer groups, and we found it to be not only profitable, but great business ideas and synergy in those groups. And that's where that all really started going. It was Pacific Life, Security Life of Denver were the first two with them.
Very cool. So before we pivot and move into your experience now at First Financial Resources, I know this is 3 decades plus.
Sure.
What, if any, key insights or even maybe a story? What would your experience there? How would you now looking back? How would you look back at that experience, just personally or professionally?
It's been an incredible evolution in our industry. Both from the carrier side and the producer side. And we've been through a lot together. I would say the high point was the coming together of the producer groups and working with them. The low point was probably the crisis, 2008, 9, 10, where agents went in a different direction than the carriers went. And
okay,
there was kind of a mistrust on both sides. We've kind of come through that with some strange business during that time of Stoli and some other stuff. But now I think the two sides are coming back together. They're starting to trust each other again. And that's what's really needed in this industry if we're going to take it forward.
Absolutely.
Everybody's got to remember that this is a long-term business. And so the carrier's got to take a look at business and believe that it's going to stay on the books. And producers need to sell stuff that's going to stay on the books.
Absolutely. Now, we met, it was roughly a year ago. I was invited to speak at the regional focus group, I believe it was, in Dallas for First Financial Resources. And that was an excellent opportunity for me, which I met you and Judd and other people at First Financial Resources. Since then, I've gotten to know yourself and many other folks there. And so just, from my perspective, First Financial Resources is a fantastic organization. Before we go specifically into the benefits of it and why people join it, I would imagine, given your background and your experience and your past roles, that must have been quite a coup, if you will, for First Financial Resources to be able to bring you over to as part of their team.
Well, they like to think that it was a great recruiting job.
Yeah.
The biggest part of it was there in my backyard. So, but I did, we did at Pac Life. I did business with NFP, and I know the guys over there, Mike James and the group, and I know M Group, and I know Lion Street. I know all these groups, and I did talk to them all. FFR was just a better fit for me, and really a platform that I believe in, and that I believe in is going to go forward and withstand going forward. It's stronger and bigger today than it's ever been in its 30 plus years.
And just as we were starting this conversation, and we'll go into a lot of details about FFR, my understanding is that the recent meeting that you all had in Laguna Beach a few months back is that business is booming. Just as we started this conversation, you're saying that you're busier than you've ever been, I believe. Top level picture, what is accounting for the success of FFR? Why is FFR unique? Why is it experiencing the success that it is? Because I just heard the other day that a lot of other people are down.
Yes.
What is accounting for your success at FFR?
I really think the difference is FFR treats the producers as business people. You join FFR because you want to be independent.
Yeah.
You want to build your business. You want to have direct relationships with the carriers. You're not looking for a third party in there. You're looking for the producer group to go out and negotiate great contracts for you, bring in great services, and then get out of your way. And one of the problems I think some groups do is they try to get too deep into the people's business. And they're always taken a little bit, because not only are you trying to build your business, but you're building that organization's business. And not all producers are interested in building somebody else's organization.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can imagine. I mean, I think that's the beauty of being independent. You want the resources that you need, the community that you need.
Yes.
But there's that fine line of, what's needed and what goes too far in terms of
what you're willing to pay for. And you know what, the biggest mistake I think that carriers have made and advisors have made, if I look back over the years, is the fact that they gave up the relationships with each other. The most important thing a carrier has is the relationships with the producers. The most important thing the producer has is the carrier and the trust they have with the producer has with the carriers. So, producers start going off one way, carriers went off in another way, third party distributors came in, and that relationship, that direct relationship kind of went away. And we're working on bringing that back, because I think that's the most important thing going forward for the industry.
That's fantastic. I was at your recent event in Laguna Beach, where I believe there was, I believe you have about 150, I could be wrong, members of FFR, and there was up to 100 or so at the recent event in Laguna Beach. And, I know quite a few members of FFR, and, my sense is that these are like some really great, I say guys just because I think the reality is that 95% are guys.
Trust me, we're looking.
Yeah, sure. Equal opportunity, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And the guys that I know are just fantastic people. I mean, they're genuine. They're smart. They're great at what they do. Mark Larrabee, Shane Walls, others that we both know. If you would tell me a little bit more about what creates that community, because I've also seen from people that I know a significant level of collaboration.
Yes.
And I find that is unique, because in this industry, on the one side, there's a lot of kind of, we don't want to share our stuff, our secrets, our knowledge, because for competitive reasons. But by the same token, what I've experienced with the people I've interacted with is a lot of sharing, a lot of collaboration, a lot of being, in it for each other.
And that's why you would join, really, is because you want that synergy of being around in a room full of top producers. And the great thing when you go to an FFR meeting, you're in that room with top producers, but you don't know what anybody else's production is. We don't get into posting production because it doesn't matter. We're a dues-based organization. So when you're in that room, you're sitting next to some really heavy hitters, and that's how you bring your business up. They're much more willing to share when they throw production numbers and that side of the business out, and they're just talking about, how do I improve? And so between the study groups we have and the 2 or 3 meetings we have a year, the synergies that they build, that's the most powerful part of FFR.
Absolutely. My understanding is that they're, out of the 150-ish members, and I don't have the exact number, out of them, about a third roughly are what I would call the $1 Million Producer Club.
Yes.
And so, just to your point, is that even though you don't publish those numbers and you don't, make it about that, what you were saying is that, you have these very successful people. One of the quotes that I always like is that you become the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And so, I always like to hang out and spend time with people that are further ahead than me, because that's the fastest way for me to get better and grow.
And that's the way for producers, especially when we bring in young producers. Our average age at FFR used to be in the high 50s, and now it's in the mid to high 40s, which is a great direction for us to be heading for the industry. But it's those ideas, those sharing of ideas. When I'm a guy that does a couple $100,000 a year, and I can sit in a room and I'm sitting at a table with 4 or 5 guys that do 1 million plus, and they're sharing ideas with me. and I find out that this guy does pension plans or this guy does premium financing, and I can kind of either do joint work with them, which I strongly recommend as the way to learn, or I can just bend their ear a little bit and share some ideas and get some ideas of what they're doing. Where else can they go to find that and get that from any place else? It's very rare.
One of the things that you all do is you have study groups. Can you tell us more about what the FFR study groups are and how that facilitates what you were just describing?
Yeah, we currently have 7 or 8 study groups. They meet twice a year, and it really is a idea sharing group. Matter of fact, you won't be allowed into a study group unless you come willing to share who you are, what you are, how you sell, what's your clientele. Really open yourself up, not only business-wise, but personal-wise, because these groups get very tight. Yeah. They know what's going on with each other. They know what's going on in each other's lives. And that's so important. I mean, like I say, it's a lonely business out there. But when you can be there with a group of people that you now are meeting with twice a year, you're sharing what's going on, not only in business, but in your personal life.
Sure.
That's what keeps it together. That's the glue. That's the strength.
That's fantastic. I recently had the opportunity, I'm in Houston, as you may know, and one of the study groups that I think Rob...
I thought you were in Hawaii.
Yeah, that's Joanne, my business partner. She, when we did the lottery, somehow she got the better one.
She won.
She won. But just a few months ago, Eric Voigt was out there, and there was a study group with Mark and Rob and other gentlemen there, and they invited me to come attend, and so it was great. Yeah, I mean, I only knew a couple of them, but just very, family-like. I mean, it was just interesting conversations that I, heard them have, and just the level of relationship and trust.
And our guys just like to be together.
Yeah.
They truly like each other. They truly like to share ideas. And, we have 186 members, so I'm not going to say they all love each other, but with the study groups and stuff, they really do share. And it's it's rare that we get into a position where they're competing with each other. Mm-hmm. And that's really, you think, you got all these guys, they got to be competing with each other. And they really don't run into each other that often.
And why is that? Can you share a little bit more? I mean, I know that you mentioned joint.
There's a lot more business out there than there are advisors.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly.
And they all kind of have their own niches, and they work in their niche areas. And most of them, when they get into a client, the client's not going to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
They're pretty secure in that. And they'll even bring in some of the producers to meet with their clients if they have a pretty good idea that they think the client can profit from.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Switching gears. So in terms of FFR members, can you talk about who, from the perspective of FFR, who is an ideal person to potentially join? What's the range of that? What's it on the one end? What's it on the other end? Why would they want to look at FFR?
You'd want to, people come to look because, again, they're looking at producer groups. They're looking at joining an organization. They want to see what they're going to get from that organization as far as building their business. Honestly, the ones that choose to go to FFR are very independent. Usually have office staff that does most of their work. They're not looking for somebody to run illustrations. They're not looking for somebody to process their business. They can go direct. We can work with them on dealing directly with the carriers and build that relationship with the carriers. And because of that, they're going to keep the money. They're going to keep all of their money. They're not going to be paying a third party 10 points or whatever based on a production grid. We don't have production grids. You get paid the highest payout day one of all the contracts we have. We're a dues-based organization. And how we know if we're doing the right thing or not is every year somebody's got to write a check to renew their dues. Mm-hmm. And so we get a report card every year. And, we've been very good at keeping the core block. We may lose 5% in any one year, sure, but we're adding on all the time. But we are also an organization that you have to be referred into.
Sure.
Either by one of our core carriers or by another member we're not out cold calling, prospecting for people to join. The people that are on the list to join are all people who have been referred in.
That's fantastic. Tell me a little bit more, if you would. So in terms of, where does a person that need to be financially in their business before they be considered as a potential member?
Yeah, you want somebody that's, look, if you look at the numbers, the breakout point, the break-even point is if you need to be doing close to $250,000 a year of premium. At that, all the numbers work really well. Below that, it just depends on the mix of business and what kind of business it is. And 1 year you may be below that, 1 year you may be way above that. And so financially, the numbers work the best at about $250,000. But you might do it at less than that because you want to be in study groups, because you want to grow that business.
Sure.
So if you get referred in by one of the advisors or a carrier who says, this is a really strong person, up and coming person that you want in your organization, we're going to find a way to get them in.
In addition to, so what I've heard you say is that a person needs to be referred in, that typically they need to be doing at least $250,000 or more premium financially for it to make sense. What are some of the other qualities or characteristics that make an ideal member for First Financial Resources?
Usually they're going to be in the advanced marketplace.
Okay.
High-end estate planning marketplace. That's where a lot of our business comes, or the pension marketplace, qualified type business. And they have to be able to be independent as far as doing their business, as far as processing business, setting up medicals, doing the stuff that maybe they've been paying a BGA for, but they just have no idea how much they've been paying that BGA to do it. Most of the guys that are here are doing anywhere from 5 to 25 cases a year, very large cases. So they really don't need a lot of processing help. And most of them in business long enough that they have staff that know how to do that, kind of where the big kids go to play. The people that are already independent, they're not looking to have somebody come and tell them how to do business. Really, they don't want to be told how to do business. They want to be given the services that they want when they want it. And the rest of the time, they want to be left alone.
Hallelujah. That's me.
Yeah. That's the way I would want it.
I was looking
but you do find out over time, even the ones that want to be alone and stuff, after they join the group and they join a study group and they come to some of our meetings, and all of a sudden they're, the wives meet the other wives and they meet and all that. It does become a family, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger family, but there is definitely, and you were there, a family feel at the meeting.
Yeah. No, I think that's the irony, right? It's that we want to be independent and left alone, and then we also want those benefits of the social benefits with peers and the families and the wives and everything.
But the important thing is we want it when we want it, not necessarily when you want to give it to us. So just be there when I want you.
Exactly. That's fantastic. Yeah. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile before we got on the call right now, and I noticed that you published an article sometime.
You got recommendations on how to change it for me?
No, just get it out there more. I think the title of it, or the key thrust of it, was that use the word commission club. Yes. Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah, you know what? I threw that out there because competitors and other producer groups will often tell you that FFR is just a commission club. And they say that like that's a bad thing.
No, exactly. It's like, oh, yes.
I mean, that's the worst you got to say about us, and so be it. Sure. We do pay the highest commission. We're a dues-based organization. So you pay dues to join. And since you pay dues to join, we don't take any of the compensation away. So you receive everything from the carrier. You receive all the overrides that FFR makes as well to you. So you're getting, no matter if you're a $200,000 a year producer or a $2 million a year producer, you're getting the same payouts. You start at the same number. There's no grids. You've paid your dues. You're a full member. So that's where sometimes where some of the other groups are taking 5 to 10 points, depending on your production, to help pay for them.
Sure.
We don't do that. And so sometimes they say, oh, people who join them are just a commission club. They're just joining a commission club. That's just not true. We have the same services. We have people, we have competition units, we have MDs on staff. We can help you get all the stuff you want. We're just training you and helping you go direct so you can keep your money.
And if you want to call us a commission club, go for it.
It's no more complicated than that.
Sure.
Just where you're going to get paid the highest if you do production.
That's awesome. What are some of the other key benefits for someone considering FFR? So we talked about the ability to go direct to the carriers. I believe you're one of the longest producer groups there are, going back to the late 80s. You're one of the
earliest formed. We are the only producer group that is 100% owned by the advisors.
And why is that important?
Because the advisors vote on who the board is. And that's who we work with here at the FFR office, is the board that's elected by the advisors. Plus, it means that there's no management ownership and there's no outside third-party ownership. So there's nobody that can drive the direction of the company other than the advisors. So, I've heard the claim that ownership has its privileges, and we agree with that. 100% ownership even has more. And so the advisors have 100% ownership, and that's big. That really is big over time. FFR started, and it's grown to a point now where we're doing a lot of premium. We're number one with 3 or 4 of the major carriers out there in distribution. With that, you get better contracts. You get better deliverables that you can bring to our producers. Some of those deliverables are going to be in competition help, in getting illustration softwares to you and packages that you can use. We'll go to the members and say, if you see something out there that you think would help all the members, let us know. We have an MD that you can send your cases to get reviewed before you send them to an insurance company. So a lot of the services that you're going to find, and then we tap into the carriers. Carriers have great advanced design people. They've got people there that know what they're doing. So we hook you up with them a lot in helping design the cases before you send them into the carriers. Then you've got, we've got a staff of 14, which is, when you compare to the other groups, a third. But then again, we've got to run based on the dues, and we got to run a very tight ship because we're spending the advisors' money when we're running the office here. So we're able to do, we will do well north of 100 million of target premium this year, as we did last year. And we do that with 13 or 14 employees. Very
cool.
Yeah.
If I can ask, what is the future? What is the growth trajectory? What is it that you would like FFR to accomplish over the next 1, 3, 5 years?
You know what? The great thing about FFR is that there is no pressure to grow. So it's not like we wake up January 1 and say, we need to bring in 25 people or we need to get production over this limit. There's none of that. We want all the good ones. If there's a good producer out there doing good numbers and doing it the right way, they're a potential FFR member. If we don't find them, we're fine. We don't have to bring anybody in. And the current members know that as well. So, when they refer somebody, that's important because they know what we're looking for. They know we're not looking just to add bodies to add bodies. It doesn't do anybody good. We want them to bring as much to us as we can bring to them. You got to be willing to go and be members of study groups. You got to be willing to participate. That's the biggest value. So our future is great. Yep. Like I say, we continue to grow, and we continue to grow with large numbers, but there's no mandate to grow.
Shifting gears slightly, and this this podcast is called the $1 Million Producer Show. And over your career of 35 plus years, you mentioned that you started out in going, I think it was selling or doing something in the carpet.
Yeah, being a career agent selling.
And quickly you got recruited and you're like, oh, prospecting. And so you decided to go and climb the ladder and become the top person there. So the question is in all that time, you worked with many people from struggling to highly successful $1 million producers. And what I'd love to pivot to now is just, what are your insights? I mean, whether it's FFR, your experience before that, what are those common traits, characteristics that make someone successful in this industry?
A couple things. I was kind of thinking about that. One is the producer who is looking at this as a long-term career. Because, when you write a $25 million policy, let's say, sometimes a producer forgets that at some point a carrier is going to write a check for $25 million. You might just look at, well, it's costing them 30 grand a year or whatever, and you think about that, but somebody's going to write a check for 25 million. And it's a long term. It could be 10 years from now, it could be 30 years from now. So the producer has to have that long-term look at, same as the carrier, to begin with, and understand that what you sell today, you're going to have to go back to that client 5 years from now and justify and explain to them. And so you can't just be looking at the sale for the sale today. It's got to be for the long term. The other thing, as you're coming along, the best way to learn is by joint work. So I see producers all the time that would come in and say, I've got this deferred compensation case. And we'd talk about it, and I'd say, well, you might want to bring in so-and-so. And you see it all the time. They'd say, well, I don't want to split the case. Well, that producer says that's probably not going to get that case and is not going to be long-term in the business. The producer who says, I'm willing to split the case to learn to learn how to do this and kind of pay dues to learn how to do it, and not learn by making mistakes with your client, but is willing to learn by doing joint work, will in the long term do much better. That joint work, learning how they're doing. If you're doing your first premium finance case, don't think you can do it by yourself. You probably can the first year, but you know what? That has second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh year admin that you don't even know you have to do yet. So bring in some of the big hitters in premium finance, learn from them, and then go out and do them on your own. There's kind of a price to pay, and that's really how you learn. You can read books all day long, but you're going to learn by being out there and doing it and rubbing shoulders with the ones who are doing it successfully.
I would add to that, in my experience, getting an interested prospect, if you will, in a concept is one thing, and successfully moving them and navigating the relationship to a point where that person is comfortable and confident in you and what you're offering are two different things, right? I mean, there's concepts that people can show interest in, then there's actually the skill set, if you will, of getting, closing a case, if you will. And what I've found is that what I love about what you said is that, ultimately it all comes down to you're selling trust.
Yep.
You're establishing trust, you're selling trust. And so for someone to make, especially a higher net worth person, more successful person, high income person, what have you, for them to really make that decision, it comes down to establishing trust. And from my experience, what better way, unless you have a long history of doing, say, premium finance or working in the specific market, what better way to not only learn, as you said, but what better way to give confidence to the person that you know exactly what you're doing.
Right, especially, and because you're talking so much money. These cases are so big now and so much money involved that you really need to have that expert in there until you build that up. I remember back in the 80s and 90s, one of the biggest producers in the industry was Peter Mullen. And Peter was one of the founders of M Financial. He was one of the founders of Deferred Compensation, did some of the early businesses. And I remember him telling the story one time. He said, look, there's two ways you can learn about deferred comp or any idea. He says, you can spend the next 3 months reading about it in a book. Mm-hmm. Or you can go out and make an appointment with a client to talk about it in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you that if you have that appointment scheduled 2 weeks from now, you're either going to learn about it or you're going to bring somebody in who knows about it. And I always remember that. And I thought, boy, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing producers need to remember is the importance of servicing the block of business.
Hmm.
The going and seeing their client every year. You know, the products we sell now are interest sensitive. They go up, they go down a lot depending on the market. They're complex instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not out in front of your client twice a year, kind of showing them what they bought, why it's working, or if rates have come down, and let them know, your clients are fine with things not, going up and down. They understand that. What they don't understand is if they don't hear from you.
Sure.
So the worst thing that's going to happen to you for going out and seeing your client is he may give you a referral.
Darn it.
The worst thing that's going to happen to you if you don't go out and see your client is he's going to buy some from somebody else.
Yeah.
And so, I think joint work and service to me are the success. Prospecting is the toughest part of our business.
Sure.
And I know that's what your firm really works well with in helping these guys get to be $1 million producers. A lot of them are great salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is they just can't get in front of people to make the sale.
Sure.
So a lot of this business is all around prospecting. And that's really an individual thing that a person has to be willing to put in, have a system, and keep working the referral marketplace. And you work the referral marketplace by doing a good job for your client.
Sure, and in my experience is also the easiest business to have, right? Because when you already have trust, as you said, you service the person once, twice a year, keep in touch, make sure that everything's going well, and likely you're going to walk out with a referral or so. And to be successful, in my mind, is that the easiest business you're going to ever have is selling more to an existing client.
Absolutely.
Or getting a referral, which then you have a transference of trust. Now, prospecting, as you said, which is, kind of the core thing that I do, it's very doable, but it's also the hardest business to convert because you're really having to not only create relevancy and interest, but you're also having to establish trust with people.
Yep. And it takes a while. And look if I was a good prospector, I'd have never gone into the home office. It's much more fun out in the field than it is in the home office. I can assure you that. No, most of the people in the home office are people who tried to sell it and really couldn't be successful at that. So, and it really was around prospecting. If you're in the business 7 years from now and you're still waking up going, I wonder who I'm going to sell today, you haven't done a good job of prospecting and setting up your business.
Yeah. I know. I think you heard Shane Walls, one of our mutual clients, I guess you can say, talk about it. And he's a guy that since he joined FFR, he went from doing a couple $100,000 a month to over a couple million. So I like to take credit for that, but in all honesty, I think that just his being part of First Financial Resources was a huge part of that, because as we talked about, the people that he surrounded himself with, that opened up doors. And just the last time I talked to him, or just what he's told me is that his biggest worry is just being able to manage all the new leads that are coming in, because he likes to go on vacation. He's in Hawaii right now. He just survived the hurricane.
Well, you know what, you see most of the big producers and the very successful producers have a very good work-life balance. And the more successful, you know what, they know when they work and they know when they take time off. And I think that's important as well.
Totally. Yeah. No, he's absolutely mastered that.
Yes, he has. Work hard, play hard.
Work hard, play hard. Absolutely. Or is there any question that maybe I haven't asked, but you think might be important for our audience to be aware of, whether it's something, just an insight that you've gleaned over the past 30 plus years, whether it's something regarding First Financial Resources, whether it's an insight into becoming or maintaining yourself as $1 million producer?
I would just go back to, I think, it's important for producers to have the great relationships with the carriers. It's important that there's a trust between the carriers and the producers, which we lost for a few years, which is now coming back, and the FFRs of the world can help with that. There are other producer groups as well, and I support the producer groups. I think they're all important. They all bring a value to their members. Each producer has to decide which way they want to go. And if I'm a producer who is dependent on somebody else's back office, FFR may not be the best place for them. There are other groups that would do better giving you a back office. If I'm a producer who's already successful and I just want to make sure I'm hanging with the right people and getting what I think is fair compensation, then yes, I'm going to take a look at FFR. Bottom line, though, is it's a great business. We've got a great future in this business. And, we just all have to protect the business that we're in so that it sticks around. And we do that by doing good quality business, good planning for the clients. There's nobody else out there doing what the life insurance advisors do. And we just got to keep doing it.
My final thought, if you would, is it's interesting. I mean, you hear about life insurance, typically in the same category as, say attorneys or different things where it's not always portrayed positively. I've had a unique experience where, a year ago, or working with Shane, and then over the past 1 year plus, working with any number of people at First Financial Resources, starting at the top level, if you will. I would describe the kind of work and the kind of advanced concepts and the opportunities. I would use the word sexy. Now, how often do you use the word sexy when it comes to life insurance? But I think what, the people that you work with, the thinking, the strategic thinking, the opportunities, the difference that they're making in people's lives for the better is really cool. I mean, it's something that, I love being part of.
Yeah, we have such a phenomenal product. And, it is tough. I mean, nobody wants to talk about dying. So that's why it's so tough to make appointments and get appointments for the producers. It's a tough subject for people to talk about. But when you look at the economics and you look at what can be done with these new generations of products and the inside buildup and all the opportunities that are there, these are phenomenal products. And, we need to protect them. We need to protect them by doing right by our clients and right by the industry, because if we do, we're going to be around a long, long time.
Well, there's a reason why, people like Warren Buffett and I believe Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg are, from my understanding, are all heavily invested in some form of life insurance, because sure. The richest, smartest people out there know the value of it.
Well, and not even at that level, but you're starting to see again at some of as it works way down, these products being sold again for the cash accumulation, for the guarantees of time. But you're finding people of all walks and lives buying these policies. So it's not anymore considered this is just stuff for the very rich. These policies have tax benefits and benefits that are good for everybody.
Fantastic. Mike, I very much appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for being our guest on the $1 Million Producer Show.
And on behalf of a bunch of the FFR producers, I want to thank you for what you've done for them and continuing to promote.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye for now.